Tessa's pregnant, Ethan said. And I'm the father. That's how my birthday dinner started. No toast, no cake. Just that sentence slipped between bites of lamb and sips of champagne. Like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. My mother dropped her fork. Natalie choked on her drink. Tessa didn't say a word. She just stared at her untouched glass as if she wasn't the grenade that had just gone off. It was my 37th birthday. We were at Le Marais, a restaurant Ethan once said reminded him of Paris back when he still compared me to the City of Light. Now I was just the backdrop, a name on the reservation, a body at the table. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just reached into my purse, pulled out a cream envelope, and placed it beside my plate. I had a feeling, I said. My voice didn't shake. Ethan's smile faltered. Tessa's hands trembled. Read it, I told them, out loud. He didn't move, so I did. Patient Ethan Whitmore. Diagnosis azoospermia. Confirmed twice last month. Silence. The only sound was the candle flame flickering. No one touched their food. Tessa's lips parted, but nothing came out. You were expecting drama, I said. But 6 weeks ago, I already started writing the ending. If it were you, would you stand up and fight or walk away in silence? Ever been erased at your own table? Tell me how you reclaimed your place. Drop your city. Let's see how far this story reaches. After the toast, no one called. Not even my mother. The birthday flowers were still on the counter, wilting. I spent the next morning wiping dried champagne from the dining table. Not a word from Ethan, not a single message from Tessa. Just silence, like I was the one who ruined the night. That afternoon it rained, Savannah rain, slow, sticky, and personal. I reached for Ethan's iPad, intending only to check the weather. But the mail app was open, still logged in, still glowing like a trap I hadn't set. We need to be more careful. Elle's getting suspicious. Signed T. They didn't even use my name, just the initial, like I was a glitch in their story. I didn't react, didn't scream, just took a screenshot, time-stamped, and saved. Later at Cafe Magnolia, I sat across from Natalie. She ordered lavender tea. I didn't order anything. I just handed her the iPad. She read the message, then looked up. That's not paranoia, she said. That's a red flag wearing a neon vest. I nodded. I want to know how far back this goes. She didn't ask what I planned to do. She knows me. That night, I thought about the IVF years. How Ethan insisted on handling all the appointments. How he told me not to stress that he'd manage the lab stuff. How I believed him. So I went back to the clinic. Same lemon-scented waiting room. Same calming wall art. The receptionist recognized me. I asked for Ethan's sample record. She hesitated, fingers hovering above the keyboard. I don't see any samples submitted under his name. I blinked. Ever? She shook her head. Only your records, Mrs. Hartwell. I smiled, the kind of smile you offer a stranger holding a secret you already know. That evening I cooked. Seared salmon, roasted squash, his favorite Cabernet. He came home tired, distracted. Said I was being weirdly generous. I just smiled again. He drank the wine, laced lightly with a sleep aid. Harmless, efficient. When he was out cold, I placed the kit on the nightstand. My friend at the private lab would pick it up before dawn. 3 days later, I got the call. Lena. He's completely infertile. 0 motile cells. 0 everything. I stood in my kitchen, polishing silver. Everything gleamed. Everything was quiet. But that wasn't the strangest part, because the next morning, as I pulled into the clinic lot to drop off the final paperwork, I saw her. Tessa, walking out the back entrance, alone, head down, same lemon-scented air, like we had never been sisters at all. She didn't see me. Tessa stepped into her car. Same dusty blue Volvo from college, same lanyard on the mirror with our initials. L+T back when sisterhood meant something. I sat in mine engine, off, fingers frozen on the steering wheel. Rain tapped the windshield. I let it. She pulled out tires, slipping slightly on wet pavement, and I watched until her car disappeared. Then I sat still for 10 more minutes. Later that evening, she texted, "Hey, checking in. How are you holding up? Crazy night, huh?" I stared at the screen. No apology, no explanation, just that casual cruelty. She had walked out of a fertility clinic the morning after announcing she was pregnant by a man medically incapable of fathering a child, and she thought I wouldn't notice. I didn't reply, not yet. Instead, I pulled out the old scrapbook from under my bed. Birthdays, vacations, notes in loopy handwriting. Couldn't ask for a better sister, Tessa. There was a time she'd cried on my shoulder when her high school boyfriend ghosted her. A time I drove 5 hours to pick her up after a panic attack in college. Now she was gaslighting me in real time and expecting me to keep playing big sister. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw plates. I was going to let her walk herself into the fire. Step 1, I texted her back. "And of course, let's meet, just us." She replied instantly, "Yes, so glad you're not mad." The next day, I reserved a table at the Mariner, our old birthday brunch spot. Coastal chic, floor-to-ceiling windows, crab cakes, and crisp mimosas. I wore cream, understated jewelry, calm composure. Tessa arrived 10 minutes late, flustered but glowing. Pregnancy glow or guilt, I wasn't sure. She sat, ordered avocado toast, said, "You've always been so graceful. I admire that." I nodded, poured her mimosa. "Must be tough, you know," she said, eyes soft, not being able to have kids naturally. "Ethan told me how hard it's been on you." There it was, that sharp edge wrapped in silk. I didn't flinch, just placed a folded note on her plate. "What's this?" she asked. "A timeline," I said. "Of all the clinic visits, mine, Ethan's, yours." Her face paled. I watched her lips part slightly. "No one's supposed to know." "I do," I said, "and I'm giving you a choice." She didn't ask what kind. She knew. "I'll wait for your answer," I added. 1 week, then I start talking. She didn't finish her toast, didn't sip the mimosa. I watched her walk out, head down again. This time I didn't feel still. I felt ready. "Ethan brought white tulips. He never brought flowers. Thought we could reset," he said, placing them on the kitchen counter like a peace treaty. "They're your favorite, right?" They were, back in 2012. Now they just looked like surrender. I let him talk. Let him open the wine. Let him pretend we were still a couple, not co-stars in a performance he didn't know I had rewritten. The table was set for 2, linen napkins, roasted salmon, his favorite Riesling chilled just right. "I've missed this," he said halfway through the first glass. "The quiet, us." I tilted my head. "Is that what you missed, the quiet?" He laughed, not getting it, drank more. By the time I cleared the plates, his smile had softened into a drowsy glow. "You okay?" he asked, blinking slow. "Bit tired," I replied. "It's been a long week." He nodded, head dipping. By the time I pulled out the manila envelope, his arms were slack on the armrest. "Still awake, but no longer performing." This, I said, sliding the folder across the table, "is everything. Clinic visits, lab results, the affidavit from Dr. Mendez, even the image of Tessa time-stamped leaving the clinic with a man who wasn't Ethan." He stared at the first page, didn't flip, didn't speak. I leaned in. She thought I'd come undone. "You thought I'd stay quiet." He opened his mouth, then closed it. "You can explain to her," I said. "But here's what you don't get, Ethan." I stood. "I'm not here to win you back. I'm here to win myself back." He looked like he might cry. I didn't care. The doorbell rang, right on time. Natalie stepped in, holding the flash drive. It held every email, every message, every clinic note Ethan had deleted, recovered by a friend who owed me a favor. She placed it on the table. "Evening," she said, nodding at Ethan. He didn't reply, couldn't. The tulips stayed on the counter. He never took them when he left. It was Tessa's baby shower. Of course it was hosted at Marlene's house. Of course the decorations were lavender and gold, the exact colors I'd used for my wedding 15 years ago. I wasn't invited, but I went. Not out of spite, out of precision. Natalie walked in first, dressed soft, sweet, invisible, carrying a pale pink gift bag that didn't hold anything but air. Inside the living room pulsed with laughter and lies. Tessa stood in the center round belly-perfect manicure, basking in glow and attention. Marlene floated beside her, passing around cupcakes. Such a miracle, she kept saying. She deserves this so much. I waited by the doorway. It took 5 seconds for the room to notice. A ripple of silence spread frosty and fast. Lena, Tessa's voice wavered. I didn't think you'd... I know, I said. You never do. I walked in slowly, set the envelope on the gifts table, then turned to the crowd. I won't stay long. Just wanted to drop off something meaningful. I looked at Tessa, then at Marlene, then at Ethan, who had just arrived and froze when he saw me. Congratulations, I said to them all. Truly, but before you open gifts, you may want to read what's inside that envelope. Aunt Sylvia reached first. She always loved a little drama. Pages unfolded, silence stretched, a gasp. Then someone whispered DNA. Tessa's hand flew to her stomach. Ethan backed away like the room had turned radioactive. It's not mine, he said. I turned to him. But it could have been right if you were capable. Gasps again. Some people laughed soft, disbelieving. Marlene's lips moved, no sound coming out. I'm not here to shame anyone, I said. Just to leave the truth where it belongs. Then I walked out. No shouting, no breakdowns. Only the sound of paper fluttering in a stunned room. In the car, Natalie squeezed my hand. You okay? I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I think I am. Later that night, Tessa called. I didn't answer. She texted, "Why did you do this?" I stared at the screen, then typed back, "Because no one else ever told the truth in our family. I decided I'd start." Then I blocked her. The echo of that day, it still exists. In silence, in space, in the way people look at Ethan now. But me, I sleep, like stone on water, unmoved finally. The next morning I made coffee in silence. No buzzing phone, no footsteps overhead. No waiting for anyone to walk through the door and lie to me again. Just the hum of the kettle and the sound of my own breath. The house felt lighter. Or maybe I did. Boxes lined the hallway labeled in neat marker. Books, art supplies. Kitchen, keep. Natalie was coming with the truck at 10. I opened the kitchen drawer, the one that always stuck a little, and pulled out the last photo of Ethan and me. Snapped at Le Marais, our 10th anniversary. We were laughing, or pretending to. I turned it over, wrote the date, then dropped it in the shredder. There was no need to carry ghosts to the new place. The condo wasn't big, but it was mine. Bought with my own name on the deed, my own money. No initials, no shared passwords, no one erasing me from my own life. Natalie arrived on time like she always did. Ready, she asked, tying her curls into a bun. I nodded. We packed in rhythm, no words needed. By noon, the house was empty except for the echo of promises that never meant anything. I left the keys on the kitchen counter right next to the tulips. They'd dried out, still standing. Later that week, I hung the first frame in my new space. It wasn't a photo, it was a print I bought years ago and never displayed. She remembered who she was, and the game changed. I stood there barefoot on the hardwood floor, feeling the wood warm from the afternoon sun. I didn't cry, not for what I lost, but for what I didn't even realize had been missing. Peace. Room to exhale. A home with no secrets humming behind the walls. The last message I ever got from Ethan came 2 weeks later. A single line. We could have fixed it. I didn't reply because here's the truth. Some things don't need fixing, they need leaving. And some women, when they're finally left alone, don't fall apart. They rise. If you've ever had to start over with nothing but truth in a packed car, you're not alone. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me how you reclaimed your name. I'll be reading. I woke up alone. The silence wasn't heavy, it was clean, like a house finally exhaling after hope holding its breath too long. No one had stormed out. No doors slammed. But something had ended, and it ended completely. The sheets beside me were still smooth. Ethan hadn't returned to the bed after the dinner. Not after I dropped the truth on the table like a final course. Not after Tessa ran out sobbing, heels clacking like punctuation marks. I sat up, tucked my hair behind my ears, and let the morning light spill across the duvet. The house was quiet, but not sad. It had shed something. Downstairs, the remnants of the night waited. I found a champagne glass still half full. The napkin Tessa had used crumpled beside a dropped spoon. And the envelope, creased now, fingerprints smudged across the clinic's seal. I picked it up not to read it again, but to remind myself it existed, that I hadn't dreamed it. In the kitchen, I brewed coffee. The sound of it dripping steady and small anchored me. I poured it into a ceramic mug Ethan had bought on our honeymoon, one with our names hand-painted along the rim. I took a sip. It was bitter. I finished it anyway. Upstairs, I packed without urgency. Not just clothes, but truths I hadn't looked at in years. The jewelry box my mother gave me. A stack of old appointment cards from the fertility clinic. The black notebook where I had once written, maybe next cycle. By noon, I left the house key on the kitchen counter. No note, no forwarding address. Just a small, neat square of paper that read, "It was never about revenge. It was about remembering who I was." I shut the door gently, and for the first time in years, I didn't look back. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and lemon oil. A narrow loft above a bookstore, small, bright, and unapologetically mine. The landlord had given me the keys that morning with a curious smile. "I don't usually get applicants with your last name," he said. I didn't explain. I just thanked him and signed the lease in quiet strokes of a pen that used to belong to Ethan. There were no movers, just me, 2 suitcases, and a box labeled only what I chose. I didn't bring our wedding photos. I didn't bring the kitchen mixer he loved but never used. I didn't bring the white sundress I wore to Tessa's bridal shower. What I did bring, the ceramic mug with a crack down one side. My journal dog-eared and honest. A photo of my mother, arms outstretched in the garden before cancer made her smaller than memory. I lit a candle and opened the windows. Let the Savannah air sweep through the space. No ghosts lived here yet. Only beginnings. That afternoon, Natalie stopped by with Thai takeout and a 6-pack of ginger beer. She didn't say I told you so. She didn't need to. We sat on the floor eating pad thai out of cartons, letting our legs stretch past the edges of the woven rug. "You don't seem broken," she said. I smiled faintly, because I broke in private a long time ago. This is just the rebuild. The sun dipped behind the row houses. Somewhere a wind chime caught the breeze. Natalie left just before 9. She hugged me like someone who'd been waiting to do it for months. When the door shut, I looked around at the soft lamplight, the dishes on the floor, the absence of anyone to perform for. I whispered, "Welcome home, not to the walls, but to myself." Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I slept. And I didn't dream of them. There's a difference between silence and peace. I used to think I needed noise plans, voices, apologies, validation. But now I wake to the hum of my own breath, and it's enough. Mornings in the loft are quiet rituals. I grind my coffee by hand, open the windows wide, write 3 sentences in my journal. Even if they're just "Today, I stayed." I started teaching part-time again, a women's history seminar at the community college. At first, I was terrified. Would they see me as a mess in heels? But week after week, those young women listened not just to the content, but to the calm in my voice. One of them stayed after class to say, "You don't rush your words. It feels safe here." I wanted to cry. Instead, I said thank you. It was the first time I realized I might be safe too. Tessa tried to call once, blocked number, voicemail I never listened to. Ethan sent an email months later. Subject line closure. I never opened it. He had his version of closure. Mine looked like a scar that didn't itch anymore. The truth is, forgiveness is a private thing. It doesn't require witnesses, only distance. And now I had plenty of that. I donated our old anniversary plates to the shelter downtown, started volunteering on Tuesdays. Met a woman named Camille who reminded me of a version of myself I thought had died sharp, soft-spoken, unfazed by storms. She asked what brought me there. I told her. A mistake, then a decision, then a life. It's late spring in Savannah. The air smells like jasmine and ocean wind, and I'm sitting under the striped awning of Cafe Magnolia, yes, the same one sipping iced coffee from a real glass, not a paper cup. I come here every Friday now, not out of habit, but because I can. Across the street, the bookstore's new window display features a quote from Maya Angelou. I help them pick it. I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. Natalie joins me. She's pregnant now, glowing amused by everything I say. Her fingers trace the rim of her mug as she tells me about crib colors and nesting instincts. I smile. Not the brittle kind, not the practiced one. The kind that sneaks up on you. The kind that doesn't need translation. She asks if I ever heard from Ethan again. No, I say, stirring my coffee. But I did run into Mary, my cousin, remember? She said Tessa moved upstate. Small town, teaching yoga now. We share a long, quiet laugh. Not cruel, just distant. There's a new scar on my wrist, faint and white, from a cooking accident months ago, but sometimes I trace it like a timeline, because it's the only one that stayed. I published an essay last week, The Toast That Changed Everything. It went quietly viral. 100 women messaged me after I thought I was the only one. You gave words to my silence. Thank you for surviving out loud. I didn't answer all of them, but I read every single one. And I whispered over and over, I see you. Because maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting, not erasing, just recognizing yourself again in the mirror and liking who looks back. That morning, as I closed the last box and stepped into my new home, I didn't feel broken. I felt light, free. The truth didn't just clear the room that night, it cleared a path for me to begin again. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones we've held the closest. But silence can speak louder than rage, and dignity is a kind of power they never expect. In the end, it's not about revenge. It's about choosing peace over chaos, truth over illusion. If you've ever been erased in your own life, I hope this story reminds you your voice doesn't need to be loud to be heard. If this story stayed with you, I'd love to hear what part resonated most. We read every word. You're not alone. Have you ever had to rebuild from something that tried to erase you? Drop A if you're still becoming. Or tell me, where are you listening from? Share this with someone who needs a quiet kind of power today.